Hello, I'm Stefan Kienzle. Welcome to the first of many ArcGIS Pro tutorials. ArcGIS is a very powerful but also very complex spatial analysis and mapping software. You need many hours of working with ArcGIS before you start feeling comfortable. The best way of learning ArcGIS is to have the software open and follow these instructions step by step yourself. Unfortunately, today's session is very dry and technical in nature because before we can do the fun things, you need to understand the general organization of ArcGIS Pro. You will see that I sometimes refer to the older ArcGIS software, which is for those students who have not made the transition to ArcGIS Pro yet. So, let's get started. When you start a new project, make sure that you're organized right from the beginning. So here's your welcome screen of ArcGIS Pro. On the left side, you would have listed all your recent projects. In your case, if you start new, this will be empty. There will be nothing there yet. So you want to create a new project, and I will show you, of course, how to import existing ArcMap projects into ArcGIS Pro. But we want to start off with an empty map and organize our files first. So you do that by simply clicking on Map. And when you click on Map, you give your project a name. You can rename that later on, but it's a really good idea to properly name your project and make sure you don't have any spelling mistakes in there. So here's my new project, and you want to really make sure that you put it into the right place, because in that folder where you put this project, a whole bunch of things will happen automatically in the background, and we will have a look at that in a second. And also, what's very important is create a new folder for this project. You want to have that turned on, because if you don't turn that on, that all the files that you will create will end up in one huge, large database with all project files all mingled together in one. And that is just causing chaos. So I advise you to always have this turned on automatically. So let me find a folder. So I put this folder in here and I say OK. So here's your first site. Nothing is loaded yet, but what ArcGIS Pro does, it automatically opens up a web-based map. You can choose which background map you want to have chosen, and right now it simply assumes that you're working somewhere in Canada. Let's have a quick look what actually happened when we opened this file. So let's open the File Explorer, and I'm going to the folder that I had chosen to write the project into. And inside this folder, I will look for my goldmine project. And here it is. And inside this goldmine project now, you see there's a goldmine geodatabase. It is empty right now, but it will be the container for most of the files that you save. There's an import log. Actually, ArcGIS Pro is quite good in logging your activities. You actually have a history of most of the tools that you use. And so these are useful things that it captures. Here's a key file. The APRX file is the Arc Pro project file that contains not the data, but all the pointers and everything else, and the symbology and what have you. Also, lastly, you see that ArcGIS Pro created a toolbox that has the same name as your project name. This toolbox is empty right now, but you can add your favorite tools in there. You can make your own tools, and that means that your tools that you need for your project are in the same place as everything else. And so that means if you want to make a backup of your entire project, you simply have to make a backup of that entire folder that contains everything that you need. Hi again. The next part is quite technical in nature, and the reason is simple. When I learn new software, I often get frustrated that I don't know where things are, and it doesn't react the way I want and behave the way I want. So we need to look at the options to set up ArcGIS Pro in the way that it benefits you, that you are in control of things. And so, well, let's get started. ArcGIS Pro has a ribbon tab right on top of your display windows. And depending on which of the ribbon tabs you choose, different tools are available depending on what your task is. By default, when you start an empty project, it starts with the Insert button because it expects you to add data. And for instance, this is where you could import directly a map file, an MXD file. Let's have a closer look at the individual ribbon tabs here. And we want to start with the project, which is actually not a ribbon tab at all because the project contains your attributes and your settings for the project. Let's have a look at what attributes and settings we can do in ArcGIS Pro. I want to start quickly here just going through some of the main tabs here. Portals is only important if you want to do online work, especially if you want to put your maps on ArcGIS Online. As you can see here right now, I'm not signed in, and we are going to do all of this at a later stage. Under the licensing tab, really, it's not your licensing manager. It simply tells you what licenses are available. In case certain extensions don't work, you can check here if those extensions actually are available to you or not. The key part for you is the Options tab. And in the Options tab, for instance, right away under Current Settings, you can see very important parts, for instance, all your workspaces. The name of your project, the location, your home folder, your default geodatabases, and these are all the things that already were set up, so you don't usually have to check these or change these, but this is where you can control your output files. Then we have our general tabs. You can see how ArcGIS Pro starts. For instance, you can set up right away where new projects should be saved and where new geodatabases should be created and where new toolboxes should be done and all of this. Same way in the Map and Scene tab. What you can do here, you can choose the default imagery that automatically opens up when you're starting a new project. Important, I find that important anyway, is your spatial reference. So you can actually already set, if you're starting a new project, which projection you want to use. So if you want to use an Alberta, and for the whole of the province, you may want to use the 10TM projection and put it in here right away. Key things here under the navigation, you can, for instance, change how your mouse wheel works, zooming in and out. We all have personal preferences about those things. You can change your selection color only here, and that's a good thing when you have, for instance, lots of maps in yellow and you rather want to change your selection color so it's better visible to you. The editing setting contains some real improvements, and whilst the top doesn't look all that interesting to most people, the key part really here is under your session that you want to turn on automatically save edits. ArcGIS Pro is constantly in edit mode. You don't have to start editing, but if you make edits, you have to save them. But we all have lost data by not saving it or computer crashings or whatever. And so here you can either set to save every 10 minutes or save after 30 operations. So let's say you digitize 30 vertices, and of course you can change these things. Save edits when saving a project. In case you forgot to save your edits, always a good idea. Turn that on. So go through these carefully and decide what is important for you. The last one I really want to share with you is the geoprocessing tool, and what I have turned on here is allow geoprocessing tools to overwrite existing data sets. This can be both a blessing and a curse because it allows you to overwrite existing files, and if you don't want to do that, you may screw things up. So be careful when you turn this on, and if you do turn this on, remember that that's what you are doing. There's always the warning by ArcGIS Pro when you do create or define an output name for any tool, and that name already exists of that layer that you're creating. It will give you a warning, and then you either ignore the warning or you don't. These are the key settings that I want to discuss right now. Obviously, there are a whole bunch of other ones that you can go through at your own time. So let's go back to look at the other ribbon tabs. Here. So the Map tab is really where you do the navigation, where you're going to the zooming in, the zooming out, the queries, where you set your bookmarks, where you add data, you can add base maps, etc. So here you see the selection tabs, you have your measure tool, your locate tool. The insert button, we started off with this. This is where you import your existing MXD files. You can create, for instance, here a new map. Let me just add here a new map. Maps in ArcGIS Pro are the same thing as your data frame used to be in ArcGIS. So instead of having multiple data frames in the table of contents, now you have multiple maps along here. And of course, we can just change those maps, so that you change the map name by simply clicking here, giving it a name. Let's here call this Gold Mine 2 for argument's sake. And so now you see here is Gold Mine 2. We can also have, and this is really nice, multiple layouts. And the good thing with the layout tab is that it forces you right away off the bat to choose your paper size. That often is an afterthought and can lead to major complications. So in this case here, you choose what works for you, and then it would open up that layout. And now you could, of course, add all the map elements in there. We'll do that at a later stage. And as I said before, you can now, of course, change your layout name, and you can have a whole bunch of different layouts right here that you can go back and forth and compare your different maps from. So for those of you who are really analytically minded, and for the scientists in you, the key tab is your analysis tab. This key tab here contains your model builder tab in your Python window that we will discuss at a later stage. This is where you set your environment settings. And let's open up the toolbox. The toolboxes that we are used to are identical. Nothing has changed here in the names in the organization, so they are exactly the same. The only nice thing here that has been embedded is instantly your search button, so you can find your tools in here. For instance, let's find out where is the dissolve tool, and then you can find the tool right away in here. That is quite handy. However, what's really nice also is your favorite buttons. All the tools that you have used lately or that you use often are listed here. And so when you're looking for a certain tool, it'll appear here, and you can just click on the tool and then execute that tool. The view tool is the one where you can add what is on your display. You can turn on, for instance, your catalog pane. Your catalog pane, of course, we know that, tells you where things are. Let's quickly look here under databases. There is the Goldmine geodatabase that was created when we started this project. Here under maps, we have those two maps here. They are listed in here, and you can go to them from here. Under the folder tab, under the Goldmine folder, there is your import log. We discussed this. There's your Goldmine geodatabase and your toolbox, which right now doesn't contain anything. To add a connection to your other folders is really simple. You would go to your folder, right-click your mouse, add a folder connection, find your connection anywhere on your PC. In my case, the connection is on my flash drive, and I'm choosing one folder that contains all of my GIS data. They're all in this one folder. And this way I give my project access basically to all files I have. You never know what files you may want to use in your project. So I say OK. And now you see here is my folder, and with all the subfolders that you find in there, there are hundreds of folders in this one, in each containing individual GIS data. Let's import a Excel spreadsheet. I have an Excel spreadsheet open here right now with some census tract data, population information, and a whole bunch of poverty statistics. And the one sheet here, it's called All Co-Poverty. And so let's open this up here in ArcGIS Pro. This is quite different from the older ArcMap versions, where you could simply go and add a spreadsheet with a plus button. That you cannot do anymore. Now you need to run an import tool for this Excel spreadsheet. So right now we don't have our toolbox open. We do that, of course, by going to Analysis, Tools, and I simply can type in here Excel and search for my tool. And let's see what happens here. And the very first tool is Excel to Table. That's what we want to do. And we simply click on this tool and we find our Excel spreadsheet. We hit OK. We select the output table, Calgary Poverty 2018, and the sheet, we don't have to do it if there's only one sheet, and this is the sheet that was discovered in the Excel spreadsheet, and we hit run, and we have successfully imported the spreadsheet. And let's have a quick look where the spreadsheet ended up. It is here on catalog. It may be actually in our database here, and there it is. It's in our default geodatabase. That's where it was written into. Now you can take this table and join it maybe into a geodatabase file or a shape file, and then use the data and display them spatially. There are three different ways how you can add data. Let's start a new map with nothing in it. So I go to my Insert button, New Map, creates a new map that I can change. Let's call it Goldmine. And now let's add data. Easiest way is under Map. You know these buttons from ArcGIS. The plus button adds data. It goes to your regular folder that lists everything on your computer that's connected. You go to your folder where your data are, and you simply add your data. You click on it and you add it. So there is my new data, and now it's zoomed in into that map extent. Two other ways to add data are to add the catalog window. And inside the catalog window, you can go to your respective folder. Over here under folders, you connect it, right click, and you can add any folder connection that you want. And again, you go to the folder that contains your data and you click on that and you just drag it in. And there's another set just added, as you can see here now. And the third way is going simply into your File Explorer. And inside your File Explorer, you find the SHP extension of your shapefile, and you drag it then from there into anywhere of your ArcGIS Pro window. And there I have my three different files added. So let's have a look how you can organize your panes. Right now I only have the content pane open here on the left side, no other windows. So let's add, for argument's sake, the catalog pane. That is always a good idea to have them. So right now this catalog pane here is on top of the contents pane because that's where I had it last time. And remember, when you're in content and you want to remove a layer in there, if you remove it, it doesn't delete it. If you want to delete it, let's say this layer here was a layer that is faulty and has been replaced by something newer. Now you could delete this by going to the catalog pane, find the location, and then delete it directly from here. So going back to panes, let's add also our geoprocessing pane, our toolbar. So that's of course under Tools, and here this is the location where I had it last. But you can change where your panes are docking simply by clicking here near the top, holding your mouse button down, and now you can see here these dock markers at various places on your screen. And if you put it on top of the square here, it now would move this geoprocessing pane on top here. Now we're having more space for our maps, and we use less space for our various tools. It is often a good idea, and I like it, to have panes on the left side and the right side of your display window. And so in my case here, to move it back again, you would not go here to the top or use the X. You would go here to the bottom, hold your mouse down, and now move it here. And I want to dock it back to the right side. That's how you can organize your panes, because things get busy very quickly. For instance, if I add here my attribute table for one of the layers, the attribute table here is displayed at the bottom. And now let's also add symbology for argument's sake. And now you see here, if this symbology typically would actually be more something like here, and all of a sudden you can see how the screen gets very, very busy. So you are in control now where these panes appear when you open them and how to arrange your display areas. So let's have a closer look at the contents pane. And you see that there are a number of different tabs, and I want to explain what they do. Of course, the default is what's called now the drawing order. It used to be just called the table of contents, and drawing order speaks for itself. In this case here, I have a land cover polygon file. I have another polygon file of my study area and the rivers, but we can only see the land cover file right now, although they're all turned on, because the land cover file is above the other two. So in order for them all to see, of course, I want to put this at the bottom. And now you can see my study area, which is a polygon with the inside being transparent or no color, and the outside being in this pinkish color. The next tab here is the list by data source. So it tells you where on your computer those various files are. In this case, all three are in one folder. And then, of course, we have the online services of the background imagery also here. So this is a good way to find out where your data are and to ensure that they're all in the correct folders. Here, for instance, you could not now take the land cover and move it around. It does not allow it because you're in the wrong pane. You can only do this in the drawing order pane. The next tab is your selection pad, which is really important when you want to select features. So let's just zoom in here some area, and you want to now select, for instance, I click on select under the map ribbon, and I want to select the river. And now you see, actually, I have selected here, my selection color is this purple color. I actually have selected the study area instead. You can see here one selected feature in the study area. So let me try this again. You click on the river here somewhere else, and it doesn't change. So even if I click now here in the middle, it still selects the study area because it's the top one. And if you don't want that, you simply turn off from being selectable. Now you can go here and select the various river segments that you are interested in. The Edit tab is next. We click the Edit tab, and now you can see turn on and off which layers are actually editable. So there's a link between this and your edit session. So for instance, if I go to Edit, and let's assume I wanted to create additional features, you see now here all three layers are listed here: land cover and rivers and study area. And let's just say, for argument's sake, I don't want to edit rivers. Then this window is refreshed and you see the rivers have disappeared. So that's how you can control which layers are editable. Often you want to have more than one editable at the same time. And then going hand in hand with this, the next tab is your snapping feature. So that would allow you that while you edit, you can snap to another feature that is extremely useful to maintain clean data sets and topology at the end of the day. Lastly, we have the labeling feature. So the labeling feature, simply you turn on your labels if you have defined labels. So here's my study area name. I can turn on the rivers, and here now are some rivers. We can talk about placement of labels another time. And then here would be my land cover. And now, although I turned on the land cover label, no labels are visible. So let's have a quick look at label settings. So every time you select a feature in your table of contents, then you have particular feature layers available to you. Appearance, that's for instance when you can turn on, very importantly, your transparency. You can make layers more or less transparent directly there. Labeling, of course, is where we set which labels are set. And so there's a certain field here that contains my land cover information. It'll be in Arial 12, a regular font, and in black, and we still can't see it. And one of the reasons, or the one reason, is that I had set earlier an out beyond limit. So that means if I'm zoomed out beyond a scale of 1 in 30,000, then it is not visible. I have to be inside 30,000. So we are right now here at a scale of over 64,000. And so let me zoom in, 41,000, 16,000. And now you see that the labels are all available. Each polygon in this case is labeled by its own. We talk about labeling and labeling option another time. Anyway, I turn off the labels again, which you can control here in your label tab. Just one quick reminder, once you changed a setting in any of these tabs here, don't forget to go back to the table of contents, because often we stay in one and then we turn layers on and off and we wonder why the screen doesn't react the way we expect. Often the case is that you forgot to go back to your regular drawing order. The last item here, this is for remote sensing analysis, and I'm not talking about this now, hopefully at a later stage. That's all for now. I'll see you next time.